Messages keep getting clear, radio's on, and I'm moving around my place. I check my look in the mirror. I want to change my clothes, my hair, my face. Man, I'm getting nowhere. Just living in a dump like this. There's a podcast happening somewhere, baby. I just know that there is.
Can't start a fire. Can't start a fire without a spark. Courtney Cox comes on stage for the video. And
I forgot she was in that video. How could I forget that?
She's doing that dance.
Yep. Yep.
Did they have Rosie Perez shadowboxing?
Oh,
Yeah. Then that I would pay for, man.
If only.
That Rosie Perez shadowboxing scene was awesome. Come on.
Just fight the power for like 5 minutes.
Worth the price of admission right there. I'm not kidding. I love that scene.
Great opening sequence.
So fucking cool.
So,
well, speaking of opening sequences.
Mookie! Shut the fuck up, Mookie!
All right, well, welcome to Rabbit Fighters. I'm Joshua.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Greg.
Oh, I should have done a New Jersey accent.
Yeah, why not? Come on. Give us your
I'm Greg.
Hey,
Gabagool.
No.
Maybe it's more Manhattan.
Let's be cliche.
Yeah, exactly.
This week on the podcast, we're heading to the East Coast to talk about an album that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm a huge fan of the band Titus Andronicus, and though I feel like I could have recommended any number of their 7 studio albums to discuss, I've chosen to go with the one that folks out there in the world probably are most familiar with, which is their second album, The Monitor. It's sprawling in depth and ambition, and it's been described as, quote unquote, a loose concept album about the Civil War named after the Monitor, a Civil War era battleship. The album also addresses other themes, including nostalgia, youth, substance abuse, and New Jersey. That description was stolen from genius.com.
It sounds like a Google Assistant like saying that to you. It has such themes as youth, destruction, the Civil War, and New Jersey.
I heard you say drugs. Is that correct?
No, not drugs.
No.
Rugs.
Make a left on the New Jersey Parkway.
So, for those unfamiliar with Titus Andronicus, and even for some of you who are familiar with them, if I can just make a quick recommendation, stop what you're doing right now and click on the link at the bottom of this here humble podcast and go to the Rabbit Fighters companion playlist and listen to a few curated jams from each episode. Why a companion playlist? Because we're just 3 schlubs making a podcast for fun, and we can't afford to pay for the rights to play whatever the hell we want on the show itself. This isn't Mark Maron or what's another podcast?
Tramps like us, baby, we were born to not be able to pay for the shit that we want.
Create a side playlist that's not exposed to copyright infringement.
Well, what if we did like MIDI versions?
That sounds like even more effort for a hobby.
We can get around it by doing black mini versions. And no one could listen to it at all.
So there's some Titus Andronicus jams waiting for you on the companion playlist. Welcome back. So it's hard for me to succinctly describe Titus Andronicus, but for the sake of a listable podcast episode, I'm going to try. Probably fail. So Patrick Stickles is the principal songwriter, lyricist, frontman, and the only continuous thread from inception of the band back in New Jersey in, I think, 2005 to today. Starting as a serious / not serious project between undergrad and graduate school, where Stickles had designs on becoming a school teacher. Their debut album, The Airing of Grievances, ended up landing them a sweetheart deal from darling British indie record label XL Recordings, which then catapulted them from a regionally respected punk spectacle into an internationally respected punk spectacle. 6 albums later, Titus Andronicus continues to release raucous and intimate albums fortified with literary and philosophical references that frequently grapple with such topics as, I'm going to go back into the Siri voice, humans versus humans, humans versus society, humans versus the law, humans versus nature, humans versus God and religion, humans versus the self, humans versus substances, as well as on Stickles' well-documented mental health struggles, and of course, the aforementioned New Jersey. Which brings us to The Monitor. It has 10 songs and clocks in at 65 minutes long. It's got cellos, bagpipes, trombones, saxophones, fiddles, harmonicas, and sleigh bells. It features musicians from Dino Walrus, Deer Tick, Double Dagger, the Felice Brothers, Hallelujah the Hills, The Hold Steady, Ponytail, Spiderbags, Vivian Girls, and Y Oak. It also features some excellent voiceover acting, with quotes from Abraham Lincoln, William Lloyd Garrison, Jefferson Davis, and Walt Whitman. This is a huge album with some really big ideas, and Patrick Stickles has a lot to say. So neither Brian nor Greg had been acquainted with this album until the past week, so let's talk initial thoughts. Is this a record you actively avoided, or is it simply a blind spot? Greg, you have the floor.
No, I didn't actively avoid it. It's one of those bands where I heard of. I kind of lump them in with like Japandroids and a couple other bands where I kind of mix them up sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, I've heard of them. And then you're like, no, I was thinking about a Japandroids album. I didn't actually hear the Titus Andronicus album.
That's awesome.
I like Japandroids. Yeah, they were good. Oh wait, this is the other one. But yeah, like it's one of those bands that's been on the periphery of, I've heard about them a bunch. I've seen, Pitchfork reviews and stuff like that and glossed over them and was like, oh, it sounds like it's a good band. And I probably heard tracks from them here and there, but I never was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop everything and put on a Titus Andronicus album and just soak it in.
Yeah, and I would echo those same sentiments. I'm familiar with their first album, The Airing of Grievances. I remember when it came out, but it was also came out at a time where I was attempting to consume a lot of new music.
Mhm.
I think I may have even owned the first album. I remember listening to it, and then I recall liking it. But then again, it doesn't like it. That's not like it sounds exactly like something, but it does kind of sound like a similar band, or there's multiple bands that can kind of sound like this. But yeah, having given this one a listen, it made me realize that I went back and listened to the first album, and
Which is a much different album.
Yeah, it is. It's a little more straightforward than this one. But I do like the attempt at the big heavy theme and the big heavy ideas and everything that's happening in this one that I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, it's funny you've been talking about this band so much that I'm surprised I hadn't gone back and listened to them a bit more. I mean, you influenced me to read Dune, although that was a challenge. So.
Yeah, but I feel like I have attempted to convert a lot of people over the years to Titus Andronicus, and I have failed on almost every occasion. So I feel like a bad fan. But I first came upon them at the first album. It was like 2008. I had just moved to Chicago. I had a job with my very first office, which was really just a conference room that I put a desk in the corner and nobody. It's like it was like a second floor. But it was the first time I was like working, and I had the opportunity to just listen to music for hours on end. So that album is very. The first time I like put it on front to back, like I had it cranked up and was just really struck by like what like a wall of sound it is and how like caustic it is, and that entire album is just him screaming with fuzz over his voice. And it's a great album front to back. I deeply love that album, but it's they went in a different direction with The Monitor. They did not expect to get picked up, but they got a record deal, and Patrick Stickles went full tilt with the ideas for The Monitor. Yeah. So how familiar are you guys with the Civil War?
He went full Colin Malloy. It just sounds like a Decemberists album idea where they're like, the Decemberists are this, Canadian collective led by Colin Malloy, and they love to talk about strange historical facts. They have these long song titles, and they'll make a song about, Marie Antoinette or like some Civil War musket or some shit, You're like, the song titles are all crazy and like literate, and they drive people crazy sometimes. I was like, an album about how an old iron-sided Civil War boat fought another old iron-sided Civil War boat, and they were like, and we wanted to celebrate the 148th anniversary of that battle between two iron-sided boats, so we made a 65-minute record of noise rock about Civil War battleships. The end.
Well, it was a good evening. Nice talking to you guys.
Thank you. Unpack that one.
I think you buttoned it up nicely.
Colin Malloy would have sung about it literally, though. He would have been like, "A Civil War battleship."
So to answer your question, I don't know how intimately familiar I am with the Civil War to the point where,
Yeah, no. I know stuff about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Antietam, that's another band.
I know who
Antietam.
won.
Are they really?
Yeah, a band is a band. There's a hard, of course. They're like sludge
big
rock,
hardcore.
like metal.
Yeah,
edge,
that was a bloodiest.
the worst battle of them all. Yeah.
There was a funny thing I read, being a ship and then the other ship, that apparently both thought they won or something. Like both ships declared that they had won the victory, but like
Full on propaganda.
They were both sinking, and they're like, "That one's sinking faster! It's sinking faster!"
Based looking at the cover and kind of the song titles, and it is interesting because I think it's pulled off kind of the Civil War homage theme thing. It's pulled off nicely in that it's not literal, and it's kind of musically woven in a little bit, but it's not this like Greg was saying, like it's not literal in the sense it's just kind of some of the
Colin Malloying it. Yeah.
There's like some, there's like there's like speeches and things, but the way they're presented, and there's just little bits and pieces sprinkled throughout that kind of thematically bring the songs together in a way. But at the end of the day, he's not like literally singing about these things in as many words, which is, I was expecting more of a literal rock opera thematic, like where those bands do like,
which they've done.
Album. Oh, they've done a rock opera,
like
Tommy.
With the one right after this, isn't it?
The most lamentable tragedy, which is the fourth
93 minute, 29 track album,
which is awesome. It's such a good album, and that. But we can talk about that later. That's another episode.
Yeah. It's as long as the peanut butter solution, I think.
Yeah. I will say, and the literal very first thing that strikes me when I put this album on was, and I said to you guys, it reminded me of Conor Oberst and Bright Eyes and Despercitos. I was like, I wrote in the chat. I wrote in the chat, is he in this band? Like, I had so forgotten about Titus Andronicus. I was like, I'm like, Conor Oberst is in this band. His vocal stylings, or I don't think it's an effect or whatever they're using, or maybe it is an effect. I don't know, but they sound identical. And
he's got that strangle, especially when he does the emotional strangle voice.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, man, that's exactly like Conor Oberst, man. And they toured with Conor Oberst, like it's a couple points. So it must have been like, wait, who's on stage right now? Am I on? Oh wait, shit, no, it's him. Okay, cool, we're good.
But then I said that and yeah, their side project, it wasn't like Bright Eyes Conor Oberst. It was like one-off side project Despercitos that had that album, like Read Music, Speak Spanish. I hopefully I have that right.
Yeah, Despercitos.
Yeah, and I was like, which is an album I do like, and I don't really like Bright Eyes. So
yeah, I'm not a fan either.
But that album came out, and I was into it, and it just reminded me very much like that, of that feel of that album. So, but which is interesting is the more listens I gave it, the less I was focused on that. I didn't really like it, kind of like wore away a little bit because the songs are just more thematically longer and different. The noise rock thing kind of mixes it up as opposed to just being this like emo kid scrawling at me for fucking 45 minutes.
It's funny because like I do like some Bright Eyes stuff. It depends on what he's doing. But his lyrics are great. I think Oberst writes really, really. He's a really pretty brilliant songwriter and has a lot of cool collaborations that he does. But his voice softened me for not having a problem with this guy's voice from Titus Andronicus, because like when I first heard Bright Eyes, I was like, come the fuck on with this voice, man. This voice sound put on and shit, like the strained vocals for the emotional tender stuff. And then you get used to it and you're like, he's a really good songwriter, man, and sometimes it gets too twee, his voice, what he does with it, but sometimes it's right, it hits right, smack in your chest. So he kind of paved the way for me being like okay with this guy's voice, honestly.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we've been chatting about it, and I feel like based on your connecting those dots there, I probably do need to do a deeper dive into Conor Oberst, because I really do like that Despercitos album. Anyway, I was going to say that I see the connection with Conor Oberst after you said that, but I think to a greater degree,
never connect. How'd you never connect those two?
Because I never really listened to a lot of Bright Eyes, so
I
wasn't really familiar with what he was singing over there. but I think to a greater degree, I see a lot of influences from Neutral Milk Hotel, which they've
Yeah.
been accused of being, pulling influences from them in the past. But on this album specifically, I think because they pull in so many like Americana instruments, and it's a little bit more apparent. That coupled with, I'd say, the extremely uncomfortable, intimate nature of some of his lyrics on some of the songs draws those parallels to Neutral Milk Hotel.
I love Neutral Milk Hotel.
That's interesting, yeah, because that's a band that I love, but it's weird that I've listened to that band so many times in this so little time. But
am I off on that? Because
no,
I hear the connection between them. But
I was gonna say that earlier. I was gonna say I put this band between Neutral Milk Hotel and, like, when we were talking about Counter Oberst on the right and Neutral Milk to the left, and they're in the middle somewhere. I feel like there's some similarities, but I mean, we can talk about that too. But as I put this on, like, there's a lot of blaring influences that you hear throughout this entire album. Certain bands.
This is so much more rational than Neutral Milk Hotel, though. That's so much more planned. Neutral Milk Hotel, it seems like a good version of a Daniel Johnston album, where like all the stuff comes from, your heart, and you have these. I mean, he was imagining Anne Frank, dancing through the trees in his dreams and stuff. He was having these like hallucinations about all this crazy stuff, and he just wrote it down. But it's fucking so good, man.
Which is awesome, because Patrick Stickles actually covers a Daniel Johnston song on their fourth album, the most lamentable tragedy.
I never got the Daniel Johnston
thing. So good. I'm like, no, he isn't.
No, I mean, I don't have a special affinity for him, but it's funny.
I know. I love that he was able to carve a place for himself in the world, but I fucking hate his music. I hate it. And they're like, Kurt Cobain's wearing one of his shirts, when he was at the height of his fame, and people were like, oh yeah, he's so good. And I listened to a bunch of Daniel Johnston records and was like, these are trash.
Yeah.
He isn't good. It's trash.
I hadn't heard the Daniel Johnston version of the song that's on their fourth album until after I heard Patrick Stickles and Titus Andronicus' version of it. And I'm like, this is a jam. This is really fast. It's like very punk rocky. And I listened to Daniel Johnston. I'm like, it sounds like it was recorded like in a bathroom, but
that's all his
with
stuff.
A microphone in a different room.
And they're like, a lot of people cover his songs because like his lyrics are really good, and you're like, no, they aren't. He's just like, I got a snail on the floor. I got a snail on the floor. You're like, this fucking sucks. It sucks. I'm sorry. I know he had issues, but the music isn't good. Oh, fuck. I'm going to get killed now. Somebody fucking mail bomb me.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. I just didn't like Daniel Johnston. It's cool. I'm glad he found joy.
So this kind of does bring it back, though, to the Monitor, and that not only is it about the Civil War. I don't really believe that they were inspired to make this album based off the anniversary of the.
I don't either, because
no, totally. That's like,
I'm like, where's all the Civil War in this thing? It just got quotes in it and shit.
It was, I think, and this is just my outsider perspective as a fan of the band, and I've read some interviews and I've listened to it a million times. Patrick Stickles was going through a real bad breakup, and he had just moved from New Jersey to Somerville, Massachusetts.
Somerville.
Yeah, Somerville, dude.
They used to call it Slummerville, dude. That was like the dump pot of Boston in the old days.
And he was a fish out of water, and he spent a lot of time getting high and watching Ken Burns' The Civil War. And all those things melted together. And similar to Daniel Johnston, Patrick Stickles is very open and writes very honestly about his grappling with mental illness and I think bipolar disorder and manic depression. And so you see on this album, there's a lot of like talk of the enemy, and it's never really clear exactly who the enemy is, but it could be.
They're everywhere.
It's everywhere.
They're everywhere.
It's him. It's his illness. It's his relationships. It's the Civil War. Against that backdrop, I think the album makes a lot more sense, but that's just one man's interpretation of it. I think it's interesting because I love the Ken Burns series, The Civil War. I don't know how many times I've watched it over the years.
But like, you've watched it more than once?
Oh, yes.
But you weren't having like, manic depression. I love it how like so many people who need help like do the worst thing. Like if you're depressed, go and you hang out in a basement in a town you don't want to live in and watch the fucking Civil War play out while getting high and drinking heavily and chain smoking cigarettes. That's sure to cure you of the malaise you're feeling in your life.
I'm not an artist though. So
oh, man.
I can't get into the mindset of someone who that's their sole thing is they just want to create art. I appreciate it. I'm thankful that they put this album on the earth, but it also does make me feel bad for, what he went through in order to get there.
I got to tell you, I know so many people who have quit drinking, like so many people who have quit drinking. And I kind of have too, for the most part, that I'm listening to this album and listening to him talk about getting shit-faced and like, slamming booze all night and like smoking holes in his lungs. And I was like, this sounds fucking exhausting. Like it doesn't appeal to me at all anymore. Like gonna go out and get super wasted dudes. I'm like, oh shit. It's just tiring. And it just, just so many of your worst nights are these nights where you go out and you just drink too much than you planned and then you just make an ass out of yourself. God, I was like, man, I don't miss my 20s. I really don't.
Yeah.
But to that point, I think I really like, Joshua, I like your perspective on that. I think that it makes a little more sense to me around using that kind of Civil War thing as a vehicle, just as like a facade,
jumping off point. Really.
Yeah, like a facade, like a
it's a novel take.
Yeah, it's a costume of, like you could say the drinking, the smoking, but then you could also put it in the context of war. And in the text where, where that's a time where whatever, killing and the enemy and all that sort of stuff. But you can spin that two different ways. Like you're saying, who's the enemy, or, your emotions are the enemy, or whatever, your depression, or it could be literal in that it's the enemy because we're talking about a war. So it's like
Rebs.
You can, you can kind of like manipulate it in two different ways. And I would prefer to look at the album that way too. It's like, it's a kind of an homage, fake smoke and mirrors thing around the war. It's not like a literal thematic album about the Civil War. I think it's like you kind of use it as metaphors for a lot of stuff.
Somewhere Rivers Cuomo is putting this in his spreadsheet.
Yeah,
the Civil War. There you go.
Ooh.
I got another idea for the spreadsheet.
Would this be considered by fans their best album? I've only heard two of them.
I think the fact of the matter is that they did tour on a 10th anniversary of just this album, and they haven't really done that on any of the others, and I can't imagine they will. This was the album that really put them on the map, like it or not. And from what I've read, for a time period that really rankled against Patrick Stickles, that like this, he had reached his zenith already with this album, and that it'd sit well with him, and so he was trying to always outdo it. And so the fourth album, that 90-minute rock opera with 29 tracks, that was a very overt attempt to surpass The Monitor. It wasn't as critically acclaimed, but I would argue that it has some of their best songs. There's a 5-song stretch on that album, which is just wall to wall, just some of the most fantastic like songwriting and punk songs I've ever heard. So, but The Monitor as a whole, front to back, as a construction, as a piece of art, I would say, is definitely the superior album.
Yeah, and they make reference to the first track on the album, A More Perfect Union, as being like their closer at shows and stuff. The thing that, kind of their anthem. So things that I had read was that this is their most heralded album, and like to your point, they're aware of it. Like, so I don't think it doesn't seem as if they shy away from it, but yeah, maybe. Yeah.
For me, I think this is a really good album. I will say dude needs an editor, man. And I listened to this album a bunch of times, and I was like, you know what? Some of these songs are just like, you could like make it shorter and don't have a refrain at the end that is the same line repeated 30 fucking times. 30 fucking times. I counted one. I was like, holy shit, man, we get it.
We get it. You're a loser.
Was that Richard II?
It's one of these fucking, I was like, what the fuck? just end the song instead of saying the same thing a jillion times.
No, it's No Future Part 3. Yeah, that one.
Bunch
You'll
of
always
these,
be a
man.
loser.
Yeah,
you'll
like Starry
always
Times.
be a loser.
Yeah.
I like that.
God, I love that fucking
Always
song.
be a loser. You'll always be a loser. Yeah, it's like 3.5 minutes of him saying you'll always be a loser.
That
It's just
song
fun.
live, it's like such an empowering song. Like
It reminds me of
amazing.
when I used to listen to music in our house and my parents would hear the music coming out of my room. And, you know, if that song came on, my mom or my dad would say, so will he always be a loser? You're like, shut up. This is angsty, man. You don't understand.
I love
Go
those
listen
things.
to the Eagles, Dad.
There's like 6 songs of this album that just like bejesus hammer the same line over and over and over. There are 2 songs that have the same, the enemy is everywhere as the whole song. And you're like, God damn it. Okay. The enemy is everywhere. I get it. But yeah, like they need an editor, man. The editor is not your enemy. It's not the USS, the Confederate ship Virginia or whatever the fuck, you know, like you have to shoot holes in the editor. So like, yeah, there's so much great, like non-distilled rock, you know, in these songs. And there's so many great lines and there's so many great emotional moments where he's like, you know, that line I said earlier, he's like, I'm going to smoke until I burn holes into my lungs or some shit like that. You know, it's obviously like this guy's going through some shit. But yeah, like I say this to my son all the time when he says bad stuff to my daughter, you know, I'll be like, you don't always have to say something. You can just stop saying stuff. It's okay. And I feel like the same thing with music is like, you don't always have to have lyrics with all the music. It's cool. Like you can stop a song. That's an option. And you can also let the song go and stop singing. And that is another option. And I think they could use both of those notes. But I think they had a producer that was like, whatever you're doing is brilliant. Oh, am I supposed to hop in with the bagpipes now? I'm in the bagpipes now.
That was a different dude.
Okay, all right. He played like 4 instruments on it though. I was like, come on, that's how you do it. You get the producer roped in, and he doesn't have a critical eye.
I personally like the anthemic endings, you know, things, even though if you know they're coming and you can still, you know, it's like the whole like the Rage Against the Machine, you know, the fuck you, I won't do what you tell me kind of thing. Like you're gonna say it like 50 times, but you're like, it's great. But I would prefer that any day over like the last track on this, which is like 14 minutes.
Oh, the Battle of Hampton Roads.
It's just like really, really long tracks are just like, oh man, like it's still go. Like that's one note I took on this album. I was trying to listen to it and I was like, I had a hard time if I wasn't looking at the script, like differentiating between when songs ended and started. So I was like trying to make notes of, I'm like, fuck, what track is this? Like they all started bleeding together. I'm like, not that I was complaining. I was like, fuck, which one is this? And of course the names are all like, you know, No Future -6, and then
they're not like
Battle
You'll Always Be a Loser, which are like, why isn't that song called You'll Always Be a Loser?
Yeah,
it's the only lyrics, motherfucker. Yeah. It's called Titus Andronicus Forever, or the theme for the
longest one is called Richard II, or Extraordinary Popular Dimensions and the Madness of Crowds (parentheses Responsible Hate Anthem),
which is totally a Colin Malloy Decemberist album title, you know, our song title.
Yeah,
except they would have sung literally about the whole thing.
I was wondering how the Battle of Hampton Roads would sit with you guys as I was listening to it for the umpteenth time over the past week in preparation for this, because it kind of, I haven't really listened to it with a critical ear in years since it came out. And honestly, the first time I heard this, I wasn't really sure what to make of it. I went right back to the airing of grievances and was like, turn that shit back up. I'll listen to that all day long. And it took me a while to like really get into the Monitor, like maybe, you know, upwards of 10 listens before I felt like I really got it. But even then I skipped the second to last track every time until like maybe 5 years ago. Which
the
is
second to last track?
The second to last track, which is And Ever. It's the one with the enemies everywhere. It's like the refrain, but it has a saxophone in it. And it's like a kind of honky tonk piano like going in it. And I can really...
Is that the one that has like the boogie kind of theme in it?
Yeah.
I liked that track actually.
I didn't like it for years, but only like recently has it really, you know, appealed to me. So I can forgive the saxophone. Well, what did you think of the song "To Old Friends and New"?
I was going to say, I like
has the
duet.
With Jen Wassner of Wye Oak.
I'm always a fan of duets, if they're done well. And then that one is, I'm trying to find the one. Goddamn, I'm looking at the lyrics and stuff. Not the fucking enemy is everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find the one where what does he say? They're and they're winning. Where he hasn't. It's one of the ones where it
after
repeats again.
10,000 years, it's still us against them.
That's one like he was talking about. Fuck you. I went to what you tell me from Rage Against the Machine. Like, I'm okay with one song having that, and that being like the thing they do as a dramatic way of getting the point across. This one was like, that's your one. That's the one that you save your endless repetition for. Because then they have that button at the end where like, they're winning. And I was like, that's a great way to end that one.
Yeah, it's 4-7.
That's 4-7. Yeah, I like 4-7.
So that one goes right into the theme from Cheers.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Save it for that one because it's got a payoff at the end of it.
Actually, I bought the shirt at their one of their shows that it just has 2 columns, us and them, and the them has all the tick marks, and us has 0 tick marks, and that's literally it.
It's super inside baseball.
No one has ever gotten it. That's fine.
Another guy in a Titus Andronicus shirt sees you at a show and is like, "Hey, what's that fucking shirt, man?" You're like, "No, it's a Titus Andronicus shirt. Come on, you're supposed to know this."
Yeah.
Come on. We had a little club. It's a secret club.
Yeah, like I said, I have been woefully bad at converting people to Titus Andronicus fandom. Every time an album comes out, I'm like, this is the time. This is the time. I'm gonna I'm gonna recommend this to someone. They're gonna come back and be like, man, this was the fucking jam.
Joshua,
that has never happened. So
I'm now learning this about you, that when you're into something, like you're really into it. Like you go deep, and then you're like, I want to make everybody else go just as deep into this fucking rabbit hole as I possibly can.
Good thing you're not into heroin.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey guys, I found this awesome thing you shoot into your body.
Yeah. I drove to 4 states to find the best shit, man.
I'm always trying to get heroin into people. Come on, you guys gotta come to my house.
You guys ever done opium?
That might be easier.
Damn, what?
I found a place that has compostable needles.
That sounds like
Totally.
You're staying green.
Keeps bending though.
They don't inject very well, but they compost like a dream. See those tomatoes out there?
This thick.
Those are all on needles.
Yeah, you'll be like into Dune, and you just don't read the Dune books once. You've read them all 10 times, or this album 50 times.
Yeah, there's a few things that I feel like
I like bomb pops. Bomb pops, motherfucker. Get a bomb pop. I painted my house like a bomb pop. I wear bomb pop t-shirts. I named my kids Bomb and fucking Pop.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Guilty as charged.
Love it.
But I appreciate that you do try to share it with people. You're like,
yeah.
Or you're appreciative when someone else likes the thing that you've converted them to. You're like, it just makes me happy. Like people like
same way.
People like Dune now. Like that makes me happy.
If people, generally loved Titus Andronicus, and they became more popular, then I think, I would be very, very happy for Patrick Stickles. He is a person so my wife is also a big fan. We've gone to many shows together, and keeping in mind his level of mental health and what he's looking like on the stage and like how much weight he's lost, we always come away from those shows being like, I'm really worried about him.
I'm a little worried about Patrick.
Like from like a almost like parental like care. Like, man, he didn't look good. That's the show. I really hope he's taking care of himself.
He starts the show. Hey, everybody. I just flew in from Massachusetts because I just moved back to Somerville. And you're like, oh, no, Patrick. No, not Somerville. Those are the bad days.
We might get another monitor out of this.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to say that. I mean, I follow him on his Patreon, and
he has a Patreon.
Yeah.
Everyone's got
him and
Patreon
Ted Leo.
now.
Those are the only two artists that
have a Patreon.
We should have a Patreon. I listen to Sound Opinions sometimes, which got booted off NPR, and they always got the guy Jim DeRogatis.
Patreon now?
Yeah, he's got this like Chicago accent. He's like, and you can donate to us on Patreon.
What about Car Talk? Are they on Patreon now?
Car Talk, the guy died, man. One of the two brothers died. Don't you mess with Car Talk. Car Talk.
I love
my
Car Talk.
boys.
Car Talk was awesome, man.
They're from the hub of the universe.
Yeah.
There's like some doctor show that's in Wisconsin where this old guy, if you call in and he gives like medical advice, but oh man, it is so bad. I gotta find it. It's like this one guy needs
his advice is bad or his accent is bad?
No, it's just like
It's Dr. Nick.
it's yeah, exactly.
You should swallow a rubber glove.
But the funny thing is like it's the doctor, he gives advice, and then his like sidekick will give a recipe or something. I'm like, what? Like I gotta like talk about like some gastrointestinal issues, and his friend be like, well, next up is a recipe about crab cakes. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, I gotta find this guy,
Which will severely fuck up your colon.
Yeah, it's like some Wisconsin guy, and I used to make fun.
Cheese.
Yeah, I gotta find this guy, but
The answer is
cut this out. Yeah, I'd walk around impersonating this guy because this duo is like, how do these guys have a fucking radio show like that anyone listens to?
It's just it's from the olden days when there weren't any choices, and he was like the only guy in Wisconsin, and then he just becomes like known. People are like, oh yeah, he's that guy.
But that's the same. I had never heard of Car Talk until Jen told me about it, and I was like, this isn't even fun. It's just like dumb.
Oh come on, I love Car Talk, man. I love how they just become relationship therapists where they're just like, oh, what did he say? No, he's wrong. The boyfriend's wrong. Tell him he's wrong. You get your $5 back from him. If you have him call us, we'll tell him yourself. No, we'll tell him. Yeah. Here's the number. We'll go off the line. We'll give you the number.
Give me the number.
Yeah.
Aren't you so glad
like
you
my brother
picked this album that we're would you, if someone had never heard of this band before, like I remember listening to the first album, I knew of this band, which is weird. In my head, I thought they were more of a harder band, like leaning more towards like in my mind that they were more hardcore than like noise. So when I put this on again, I was like, oh, this is not the band I remembered. I thought, and maybe I got them confused with another
Japan Droids.
Yeah.
No, I like Japan Droids. This is more. I was trying to think of band. What is it? Was it the band Fucked Up?
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking of them maybe.
Fucked Up is definitely louder. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a straight up punk band. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's what I was thinking as opposed to.
And I love Fucked Up.
I know you love Fucked Up. Of course, because you love Fucked Up. You really love Fucked Up.
I have almost put Fucked Up in like the opening intro several times.
Here are my kids, fucked and up.
But where I was going with this was, if no one had ever heard of this band, would this be the album you would tell them to check out first, or do you think that their first album is more accessible?
I think I'd probably go down like the mixtape road where I'd just like, here's 10 songs that are off of Sprinkling. Here's my favorites. If you like those, then you can dive deeper. The Monitor's hard because I feel like you can't really pull a lot of these songs out. A lot of them cut off, exactly. This like noise that goes into the next one. It's very apparent that it's meant to be played together. So it's a little hard to pull some of these off. But I feel like there's enough tracks off of other albums that if you just listen to those, you either get it or you don't.
Yeah. I'd put the first 3 tracks on this all together because I think these are the first 3 tracks on this album are all great, especially together. I think they're fantastic. And then that's kind of the album kind of splits off a little bit for me from there. It gets like not as it slows down a little bit and those type of things. But those first 3 at the beginning are all like a great way to open this album, I think. But
yeah, I think Richard II, A Pot in Which to Piss, and 4score & 7 are also, they can be lumped together. Those 3 flow into each other really nicely.
I was gonna say I liked A Pot in Which to Piss is also one of the ones I really liked. I jumped to that one quite a bit, and then To Old Friends and New I liked.
I liked I liked when A More Perfect Union came on. I was like, oh fuck yeah, man, I'm gonna absolutely love this album because that's a great song and a great opener. And
so many references in just the first song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Bruce.
Titus A forever. I was like, enemies everywhere. Okay. It's
really hates that repetition.
All right. And then
but who is the enemy? Who?
Yeah. No Future is like a great song. And then you get to, I started to do this as the album went along. I'd be like, this song is really good. And they'd be like, you will always be a loser. I'm like, don't say it again. You'll always be. I'm like, oh God, if he says it twice, he's going to say it 40 times. And then you're like, 16, 20. God damn it. Don't do this again, motherfucker. I was enjoying this song. But yeah, like, No Future, most of it I think is great. Richard's second, I liked a lot. Although I love the grammar. They used the correct grammar. I think it was like a pot in which to piss. The grammar teacher would be like, yes, very good, very good. A pot in which to piss.
It's funny. His I think high school English teacher is the one who does the voice of Abraham Lincoln on all of the tracks.
Funny.
So his teacher was right there.
Right. It's funny. Also, the Guided by Voices singer and songwriter Bob Pollard was also an English teacher he was actually an English teacher who was like, fuck this, I'm going to become a rock star, and, founded Guided by Voices. And then, of course, Sting, Gordon Sumner.
Was he an English teacher?
He was an English teacher, yeah. 10 Sumner's Tales or whatever the hell one of his albums was. It was, in relation to his old.
And he
English
was going
teacher.
to be future emperor, but he got killed by Paul Muad'Dib.
He's got to be killed by Paul Muad'Dib. Yeah, he has that, like, Don't Stand So Close to Me song where it's about the creepy teacher. I think he got that from his
the song he did about
days.
the God piece.
Tantric sex.
It's so close now, it covers half my junk.
I will kill him.
We'll kill him. Yeah, it's funny because Sting does that too. He does. I remember listening to Police in my house, and my mom was like, "Is he sending out an SOS?" Because at the end of that song, they're like, "Sending out an SOS," like 400 times. But yeah, I loved. I thought Richard's second, a pot in which to piss, 4-score-and-7 were great right in a row. And then I was like, theme from Cheers, fucking can it. And then To Old Friends, I was like, yep, this is a great song. And then another Enemy Is Everywhere track. Yeah, I can skip this one. And the Battle of Hampton Roads, when I first heard it, I was like, God damn it, man. I took the dog for a long walk, like a really long walk. And I came back and there were 5 minutes left in the song or whatever. But I was a little mad at it for being that long. But as like the third or fourth time I listened to it, I was like, this is probably my favorite track in the album. Honestly, it's a difficult track, and it isn't one of the ones that jumps out at you like a friendly dog right away and makes you love it. But at 3 or 4, and I was like, this is really fucking good, man. Yeah. For me, it'd be a classic album. But I'd kill one. I'd kill a couple songs. I'd kill a couple of.
It is over an hour long.
The Enemies Everywhere is. I don't know. I'd maybe keep one of those, get rid of the Cheers theme, and then shorten some of the other ones, and then I think you'd have.
And also tell us who the enemy is.
Patrick. Who the enemy is? I don't have to know who they are. I just don't have to hear that they're everywhere all day.
I know that. I live in America. It's apparent. The enemy is fucking everywhere.
I live in
constantly.
Tennessee. The enemy is everywhere. I see bumper stickers. The enemy is everywhere.
Greg lives in Tennessee. The Civil War's still going.
God, it really is. It really is.
They do musically throw the kitchen sink at this album in a way, which I appreciated in some respects. Like even that bagpipes, saxophone, there's like a whole like boogie piano section in one track. And then there's fuzz guitars. And it's just like, they're just, and we didn't even talk about this, but the influence is like, I keep hearing like the Pogues in this album, all like the
Tavern. Putty,
it's funny because I read that they were influenced by the Pogues, but I didn't personally hear it. I was like,
really?
I really didn't. No.
Oh my god!
I heard more. I heard more Bruce Springsteen. I heard more Hold Steady. If you remember that band.
There's a ton of influences on this. A ton of references. Obviously, Bruce Springsteen being from New Jersey. I think the band wrongfully, because of that association. It's in like every news art, like every piece that's written about them is New Jersey. Hey, Bruce Springsteen. And I know he is a fan, but he's also stated that my love of Bruce Springsteen is a little overstated. I do love them, but that's not my only influence.
It's like, it's an influence in that in a couple of tunes, they have backbeat stuff that sounds like the E Street Band a little. and he uses a couple Springsteen lines. That probably doesn't help his case.
No, it doesn't.
But like, this fucking doesn't sound like Bruce Springsteen, man. This album sounds like a rock punk, love child with a bunch of literary references crammed in, and some other folky stuff thrown in here or there. But like, this is a rock record. It's not a like a Springsteen record.
I think I will. Is this the first one? This is one I will revisit. I think it will. I think I probably said this on every podcast that we've done about an album, maybe aside from the Tom Petty one, because I don't want to go back and revisit it. But
I fucking hate Tom.
You don't want to come around there no more.
I don't like him. So
but he's good.
He's dead. You can't hurt his feelings.
I don't know. It's fine. Yeah,
Jesus.
I mean, I can listen to Damn the Torpedoes. That's about it.
Oh man.
But whatever, John Cougar Mellencamp fan. Leave me alone. You're like, dude, I'm fucking telling you, dude. John Cougar Mellencamp.
Cool guy. He's got all kinds of stuff. He did like
fuck your shit up,
He did like a I'm About to Die album a few years ago. He sounded like Tom Waits. It's fucking brilliant, dude.
You and me, we'll get a couple beers, listen to fucking Melly, and But anyway, to this, I feel like this is one of. It seems like a band and an album, which, to your point earlier, one, I do think I would get really into if I saw them live, like you guys were saying. But two, I lost my train of thought. But from earlier, what I was saying is that having only 6 days or whatever we have to. I feel like this is an album where I would say 6 days is not enough to let this marinate. Like, yeah, you can kind of listen to the surface, but for me, it's kind of like Greg was saying earlier, it more aligns to like Neutral Milk Hotel to me, which something like In the Airplane Over the Sea, something like that takes many, many listens to get to like love that album because it is so different. But I could see hearing this more and more and more, how you could like love this album more. Like the things that you've taken time to let sink in thematically and kind of get, go through the lyrics and stuff like that. Like, I don't feel like it's enough time to do that, but I think I can give it a resounding, like, shit, I need to go back and listen to this more. Whereas a lot of the albums we do listen to, I'm usually like, okay, I can put this in the rotation, I'd say.
I listened to it in a bunch of different situations, which I think was helpful. Like I listened to it on a run. I listened to it on a really long hike. I listened to it on like a walk at night. And I listened to it just sitting there looking at the lyrics while it played on headphones, in house.
I listened to it while mowing the lawn.
Okay, good.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
but it all brought out different things. When I was hiking, I listened to the lyrics a little more. Like stuff would pop in more. Yeah, you just feel different elements of it when you, at least for me, when I listen to it in different states of activity. I get different things out of it, and it helps you appreciate the whole of it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, to like where you just put on different scenarios, and I think it kind of sinks in a little bit more. Yeah.
So should we wrap this up? Should we rate this thing? Should we have our little Appomattox Court House and this time around not give a pardon to Jefferson Davis or any of the Confederates? Sounds good.
So is F going to be the iron-sided Virginia battleship and A the iron-sided northern battleship?
No, I've got a good one here. So on a scale of A to F, A being the Civil War, a film by Ken Burns, and F being the War of Northern Aggression, a Facebook rant by your racist uncle, where does this fall?
Joshua's got to go out. I'll go first. I'll break the ice. Yeah. So I like I said, this needs an editor. Like when I edit our episodes, I'm like, I'm gonna cut a whole bunch of shit that I said. Nobody needs to hear everything my ass says. So I take a machete to the stuff that I say. I feel like they needed a kind editor that was like, oh, friends, this is amazing, but we need to cut some things, and cut some things, and then make it. I don't know if this was an 8-track album with a couple songs that were a little truncated from what they are, it'd be fucking incredible. It'd be A+ for me. As it is, I've already gone over what I thought, even track by track. So I'll just say as it is, it's a B for me. With editing, you know, in my fantasy version of it, it's an A+ with some edits. But like all the raw material is there. You just need to refine it a little bit. You know, it's got incredible stuff in here, all over the place. So yeah, just edit.
Fair.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd give this a B+. I think mostly I see the potential in me really liking this album more down the line. So like I said this earlier, obviously, but a little bit more time with it, I think. Because I like this style of music. I like other bands that are very similar to this. I liked the first album. I just had never spent that much time with it. So, you know, I think, yeah, there's probably a handful of tracks I may skip here and there, but I think it could be an album to where I like it front to back. I just gotta let it play more. Not in a stressed scenario of like,
homework
I gotta listen to this and I gotta take note. Yeah, I mean, it's totally different. Listening to an album where you're trying to like critically think on it as opposed to just letting it wash over you, like, and be like, okay, that's the track I like, you know, and then you go back to it. But it's like, here, it's like, I gotta get through all of them. I gotta do it twice, and I gotta see which ones I don't
falling
like.
Out of an airplane, and I have to listen to the album as I'm falling out of an airplane.
Yeah, I know Greg's gonna listen to this twice, so I gotta listen to it twice. So he's gonna be running to this. So it's like you look at it from like different angles, and I feel like it's stressful. But from what I've taken away from it, I think it's a solid album. I think it could be a good classic album. It may not ever reach, in my mind, like in the airplane over the sea territory to me, which is like an A+. You know, but to that point, like that album took like that. Even that band took a little while to grow on me. So I feel like I don't know if I've ever reached that echelon in my brain, but I feel like this album has a lot of potential to be a classic album in you know, in terms of like things I go back to. I just want to sit with it a bit more, but it's a solid B+ though.
Nice. I'll take it. That's B and B+.
You don't get to claim the conversion because I already listened to them.
But B and B+ are far above other reactions that I've gotten. So,
oh really?
And like I'm totally looking out for shows, man. If they play Nashville, I'm totally gonna take a night off from being a parent and
I think they used to tour with Diarrhea Planet as well, which is how I learned of Diarrhea Planet, because Patrick Stickles has a habit of like shoehorning in names of bands he loves into songs, and on the third album there's a shout out to Diarrhea Planet.
Diarrhea's everywhere. Diarrhea's everywhere.
So this is, last week when I introduced this, maybe it'll get cut from the final version. I don't know. I stated that I wasn't sure whether or not this is my favorite album out of all of them. And I still don't know whether that's the case, because there are other albums that I think of first. But this album, I mean, it's definitely a really, really, really good album. I think I give it an A, all told. It is responsible for some of my favorite lyrics in all of rock and roll. I think To Old Friends and New is legitimately one of the most beautiful songs that I've ever heard, not just of this band, but I will listen to that song over and over again and probably never get tired of it. And there's another song which is, I think, similar. It has another female vocalist on a later album. It's called Crass Tattoo, and it's kind of his ode to the tattoo he got when he was 24, and I think it's along the same lines. I think both of those songs are up there in my mind as like some of the most beautiful music I've seen, and they both came from Titus Andronicus. So that helps like sort of cement it in my mind. But this album, I appreciate front to back that it's not a hard and fast concept, that he plays loose with it, that he injects all this personal shit that we're not privy to, but we can kind of read between the lines. Or maybe it's a philosophical treatise, or maybe it's a historical treatise, or maybe it's an indictment against the Northeast and Massachusetts. I don't know.
That gets an F minus. It's so coming from the hub of the universe.
Greg's not on board. Um,
Go to hell.
so yeah, if you're out there in podcast land, I highly recommend giving this album a listen. And yeah, that's the Monitor. And if Patrick Sickles, you're out there listening, I know I didn't do any of this justice, and so I apologize. I hope you're doing okay.
You look thin. Why are you eating? Come on.
I would 100% do that.
Those ramen noodles don't have any nutrition in them. You gotta stop eating those ramen noodles.
You're like, are you getting enough food? Are they treating you well?
Your wife's like, come on over. We have soup. We have a nice soup.
I made a lasagna.
We have a rec room that you can
no
sleep
smoking in
It's
the
wonderful.
house, though, Patrick.
No smoking, Patrick.
Wait, who was the band that you had sleep on your floor?
Oh, that was the Velveteens, which is a ska band. They're from DC.
Come on
I believe.
over. Titus, come over. You can sleep on the floor.
There aren't 14 of you, and you're not a ska band. One last anecdote that I did choose the intro from Dancing in the Dark because one of the greatest, I think, live shows that I'd seen. It was the encore at a Titus Andronicus show, and it was Ted Leo and Titus Andronicus singing "Dancing in the Dark" as the closer, which was just icing on the cake. So, drawing that back together.
This gun's for hire, and his name's Ted Leo.
Next week on a very special Rabbit Fighters podcast, we're doing a rando, aren't we? We are doing a rando.
We have done a rando.
We got 14 items on the list, and no, I'm sorry, we have 30 items on the list, and we are going with Junior.
Oh, God.
The Danny DeVito, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes pregnant. I think it's an Ivan Reitman film, if I am not mistaken.
It's an Ivan Reitman
yes.
film. It is. Yeah. This is back when they were like, Schwarzenegger can do no wrong. You could even make him pregnant in the movie.
Oscar nominated.
Like, oh,
I'm not sure for what category, but
it didn't work.
This movie's
Oscar
had
that
nominated
is what,
for what?
Amazon Prime told me when I tried to find it for free, and it's nowhere. Fun fact: Kindergarten Cop and Twins are both on Netflix right now, but we didn't choose those. We chose Junior, which we may have to pay for.
Got a baby in my belly. Oh no!
I've never seen it. So.
Emma Thompson got me pregnant. Oh.
So bad. The fact that I knew we were doing this because we randomly selected this.
And then forgot.
Well, we still use the randomizer.
We use the randomizer, yeah.
It was the random pick. The fact that I knew it was coming and I still cringed is telling you how much I am looking forward to doing Junior.
Oh man, I've never seen it, man. It's gotta be.
I feel like I
saw it a long time ago. I don't remember. Remember it, but hey, you think of it this way: it's got to be better than the peanut butter solution.
Smallpox is probably better than the peanut butter solution. So, all right, we'll see you next week. Got to end on the peanut butter solution.
I'm giving birth.